Hello everybody, it is January 2021. Happy New Year. My name is Erica and welcome to a new video. Today I'm doing my January TBR, which I am really excited about. I'm just excited for 2021 in general, which I think most of us are, but for me, this marks the beginning of what will hopefully be my first full year on Booktube. We'll see if that's the case. 2020 was definitely the year that I got back into reading, and I do have some videos planned as far as like 2020 wrap-up type things, which will kind of be going up on my channel throughout January, but I thought that the first video that I should do, obviously, is my January TBR so that I can go ahead and get started on my reading for this year. For these first 2 months that I've been on Booktube, I've basically let a handful of readathons set my TBR for those months. I really enjoy the concept of readathons. I like the idea of having reading prompts that you have to fulfill and like choose a book that matches that prompt, and that sort of determines whatever it is that you read next. And a lot of the booktubers that I personally watch have taken that concept of readathons and reading prompts and made like TBR games where they play a game every month that helps to set their TBR for that particular month. I don't have a game, but I do have something new that I'm going to be introducing since it is the start of 2021, and I thought with the beginning of the new year, this would be the perfect time to start something like this, which is something that I've been thinking about kind of as I've been involved with Booktube, and that is my new TBR jar. And I know that I'm not the first one with this idea. I've seen several other people on different channels use a kind of TBR jar to select their reads for the month. And so this is what I decided to do. And I'm excited because this will be my first time ever using this. Okay, so let me explain kind of how this will work. So I've had this jar for a while. I don't even remember why I had this to begin with, but I wasn't using it for anything. And I thought that it would be perfect for my TBR jar, which was an idea that I had had for a while as a way that I could continue with sort of these reading prompts for my monthly TBR. So what I did was I typed out a bunch of reading prompts, and there are 75 of them in here. Basically, it was things that ideas that I sort of borrowed from other readathons or reading prompts that I had seen other people using in their TBR videos, or things that I just completely made up on my own. So I typed them all up and printed them out on this pretty scrapbook paper to kind of like make it a little more aesthetically pleasing, because I think what I'm gonna do is store this just on my bookshelf. I'm trying to figure out like the least awkward way to hold this and actually like move the strips around in here. This is a massive jar. This is not, I did not think this through. It's kind of a fishbowl, really. So the idea is, in order to decide what I read for the month, I will pick reading prompts out of the jar, and then I will have to try and fulfill that prompt or meet that prompt by selecting a book that matches whatever is on the paper. Also, I'll kind of give you a little spoiler and let you know that I did not finish reading all of the books that I had for my December TBR. I do have a handful of books that I could just carry over into January, but that sounded way less fun than like having a way of challenging myself to read a new set of books. Like I wanted to, like it's a new year, we're into 2021 now. I don't want to carry anything over from 2020. We're starting fresh. So between the books that I didn't finish from last month and some other books that I am also excited to get to for various reasons, I do in my mind already have a list of books that I would probably say are my go-to. And I even considered, you know, if I have 4 or 5 or 6 books in mind that I already want to read, then why not just make that my January TBR, but it is so less fun to just like pick my own books instead of doing something like this where I have to challenge myself a little bit. So I think that this makes it more exciting, and it also, I think, motivates me a little more to actually read the things, because when I just pick my own books, like if I don't read them, then I don't read them. But if I have prompts that I have to fulfill, then it's like more of a challenge to want to actually fulfill those prompts for the month. I don't know why that's the case. It's just so much more fun for me to have that sort of like goal in mind. So that's the plan with the TBR jar, is to pick from the jar, see the prompts that I have to fulfill. If I can fit in the books that I know I'm most excited to read next, then obviously those are going to be the ones that I choose. But if I get one that like is totally out of left field and doesn't match any of the books that I already have in mind, then I'm going to have to kind of pick something that I maybe wouldn't have thought to pick, which is also fine because there are plenty of books that I need to get to. And I need something to kind of nudge me towards some of the books that I have and that I would like to read eventually, but that maybe wouldn't be at the top of my list, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about any like rules that I have for myself, because I know that for a lot of booktubers who do this type of thing or who have a more specific TBR game, there's always rules about like what books they're allowed to pick and how many and what happens if you don't actually read the books that you had picked for your TBR, etc., etc. And I'm sitting here realizing that I haven't really thought those things through. So let's go ahead and say 5 prompts. I'm gonna pick 5 prompts from the jar. I feel like that's a safe number. 5 is a good number. And if I can't like fit in all of the books that I had hoped to fit in those 5 prompts that I get, then I feel like that leaves me a little bit of wiggle room to maybe add on additional books where I could read, you know, 6 or 7 or 8 books over the month if I wanted to. As far as the books that I'm allowed to pick for these prompts, I'm going to go ahead and say that it does not have to be limited to the books that I already have on my shelves. That would maybe be preferred since I already own them and I obviously bought them with the intent of reading them. But like a lot of booktubers, I think it's hard to stick to your like owned TBR. I basically am just allowing myself to read whatever it is that I want to read. If I own it, great. If I don't, I'll find a way to get it and read it. I am also giving myself full power to DNF books, which I think everyone should do. If you don't like a book, if you're not enjoying it, let yourself DNF it. Let it go. You don't have to finish a book that you're not enjoying. Obviously, if I choose a book, the hope is that I will like the book. I will do my best to give it a fair chance, but ultimately, if I'm not enjoying it, then I'll DNF it. And there's no like punishment for DNFing a book. To build off of that a little bit, I also know that a lot of booktubers sort of implement punishments if they don't finish all of the books on their TBR. So let's say I had 12 books on my TBR and I only read 8 of them. That's 4 books that I didn't actually get to. So what's the punishment for having not actually finished those books? And I've noticed that different booktubers have different ways of doing this. Some will carry over at least one of those unfinished books into their next TBR. Maybe they have to read one more book than they normally would in a month on their monthly TBR. Maybe they have to force themselves to read a book that they're not so excited to read. But frankly, I hate the idea of giving myself punishments when like reading and Booktube and all of this is supposed to be fun for me. So if I don't finish all of the books on this TBR, I'm not gonna punish myself. I may reevaluate how excited I am to read a particular book if it's one that I didn't feel fully motivated to get to. I may reevaluate how many books I set to read for a month. Maybe I need to reduce the number of books that I plan to read. Otherwise, you know, sometimes life just happens and you don't read all the things that you want to read, and that's also fine. So anyway, I think that's it as far as like the rules for my TBR jar. So without further ado, let's go ahead and draw my 5 picks for this month, and we will see what I get, and I will decide which books I am going to read as we go. At this moment in time, I have zero idea what books are actually going to end up on my January TBR. I am going to figure that out live with you right now. So let's go ahead, if I can manage to hold this jar as least awkwardly as possible. I'm going to not look at what I am picking, and we're gonna go with this. Uh-oh, I dropped one. This one. This is going to be our first one, and it is read a book over 300 pages. That could be most of the books that I had in mind for January, actually. Let me just get on my laptop and check that this book is over 300 pages. I'm pretty sure that it is. Oh my God, okay, this book is way over 300 pages, but I could pick so many books with this particular prompt, so some of you are gonna be like, Erica, why is that your very first pick of the new year? But the book that I am going to choose for this prompt is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses last month in December. I kind of have to laugh at myself for picking this book first, but it's obviously one that I am eager to have on my TBR for this month. Instead of risking it not making it onto my TBR, I am going to go ahead and make that my first pick for January. I do not have a physical copy of A Court of Mist and Fury. That is one that I might go out and purchase for myself because I do already own the first book. So basically, A Court of Thorns and Roses is a fantasy romance series that takes place in this world of Fae, and it follows our main character, Feyre, who at the beginning of the first book accidentally kills a fairy, and as part of her punishment for that, she can either choose to be killed on the spot or to live out the rest of her days in the land of Fae. Obviously, she chooses the second option, and she travels to the world of Fae, the land of Fae. I don't remember what it's called. But obviously things happen, romance and drama ensue. It's also a Beauty and the Beast retelling if that is something that you are interested in. I won't go into my full thoughts on the first book. I will save that for my December wrap-up, but obviously I liked it well enough that I am wanting to continue with the series. So my first book of January is going to be A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Okay, book number 2, prompt number 2. Let's see what we get. Is this just, okay. All right, so this one is upside down. This one is read a book featuring magic. Oh, that one would have worked for A Court of Mist and Fury as well. So, ooh. Where is it? Okay, so I do have a physical copy for this one. For a book that features magic, I am going to finish reading The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This one was on my December TBR, and it was one that I obviously started but did not finish. It's about this magical circus that periodically appears mysteriously in various places, and behind the scenes there are these two magicians that are essentially having to compete against each other in a game that I don't even think they realize that they are a part of. It definitely has magic, it has romance, it's very atmospheric, and so far I am liking it. I have been actually listening to it on audiobook more so than actually reading it physically, but I do have the physical copy, so throughout the month of January, this is one that I will probably switch back and forth between the audiobook and the physical copy. So this is perfect. This is another one that I was really hoping to get onto my January TBR. So there you go, book number 2 featuring magic, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. All right, prompt number 3, I will not look, is this one, and it is: read a book in a series. This also would have worked for A Court of Mist and Fury, but none of the other books that I had been thinking about for January are part of a series, so let me think if there are any series that I am currently in or any series that I want to start. Okay, so I actually have a couple of other books from my December TBR that I didn't finish that are parts of series. They're each actually the start of a series, and I didn't get to either of them. So what I could do is I could read the first collection of the Avatar: The Last Airbender comics, which was on my December TBR, which I actually started like over the summer and never finished. So this would be a good option for a book in a series. Or the other book in a series that I had planned to read for December but that I did not get to is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, and I'm also very excited to read this one. And this one would have also worked for a book featuring magic. This is another fantasy. So the thing about these two options is I know that one of the prompts left in the jar is to read a comic or graphic novel. So in case I get that one, I'm going to save this and use that for that prompt. So I think what I'm going to do is for a book in a series, I'm going to actually pick A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. So I want to say that this is like a historical fantasy, and it takes place in 4 different Londons that exist in 4 alternate worlds, and our main character, Kel, yes, Kel, is one of the last remaining magicians who has the ability to travel between the 4 different Londons. And like each London has a different sort of like level of magic that exists. So because he has this ability, there's like some official business that he does, but unofficially he smuggles things for people. And I think he ends up taking like some magical object that he's not supposed to, and there are consequences to that. And so like it takes him on this whole adventure to sort of right that. I have heard very good things about this. I know that a lot of people are big fans of V.E. Schwab. I have never read any of her adult novels. This will be a first for me, so I am excited about it. So this will be my 3rd book for the month of January. All right, prompt number 4. Let's see what I get. We're going with this one. And it is, oh gosh, it's a long one. Read a book with stars or space in the title or on the cover. Okay. Okay, I was right. I had to look something up to double check something, but I was correct. I know exactly what I'm going to read. And funnily enough, it's another book by V.E. Schwab. So for a book with stars on the cover, I'm going to be reading the very hyped 2020 release, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I don't physically own this book, so I had to look up what the cover looked like, but I was pretty sure that it had stars on the cover. They're very like subtle, but there is sort of like this constellation that goes across the front, which totally counts. So we're gonna go with it, and my fourth book is going to be another V.E. Schwab. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue just came out in October, and like everybody on the internet has been reading it and absolutely loving it. So I'm very excited to get to it. I've heard a lot of good things, and basically it follows our main character, Addie LaRue. And I want to say that it's another kind of like historical fantasy-esque story. Addie LaRue is a woman who doesn't want to be limited to the traditional roles of womanhood. She doesn't want to be stuck in a marriage. She wants to live her life freely the way that she wants to, and so she makes a deal with the devil to do that. And of course there is a twist where although she gets to live freely and although she gets to live forever, like as long as she wants to, for as long as she chooses to live, no one will ever remember who she is. So she goes through life and she meets people, obviously, but they don't ever remember who she is. Like, they don't remember having met her, which I think is such an interesting concept. And like, I'm really curious to see how that impacts just like daily life. But it also implies that she lives a very lonely existence until at some point in the book, I think she's in like a bookstore somewhere and she meets a guy and he actually remembers who she is. And I believe that there might be like a little bit of a romance there. I'm not entirely sure, so don't hold me to that, but I'm just so very excited for this book and I've heard such good things about it. It might be one that I also go ahead and buy. If not, I will find another way to access it since I do not already own it, but I am excited to have that one on my TBR for January. So that will be book number 4 for my monthly TBR. All right, prompt number 5. This is the last prompt for the month of January, and we're gonna go with this one. And this says, oh my God. Read a book with a name in the title, and this would have literally been so perfect for The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue because the name Addie LaRue is in the title. Do I have any other books? Ooh, I might have. I have a couple that I can think of that have names in the title. Let me. All right, yeah, this is the one that we're going for. So, for a book with a name, like a name of a person in the title, I am going to be reading The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I do own this one physically, and I bought it because I just heard so many people raving about this book, and I am very excited to read it. So what do I know about this? I believe that this book is sort of written like a biography, but it is fiction. Evelyn Hugo is like this Hollywood icon, and this story basically like follows her really crazy life over the course of several decades. Obviously, I'm assuming she has 7 husbands, and so we get to learn / see those relationships throughout the story. I also want to say that there is some like LGBTQ rep in this book, and I'm not really sure how that plays into the story, but I think that that will also be interesting. I've just heard a lot of the booktubers that I watch talk about this book as one that they maybe normally wouldn't have read, or like they didn't think that they would like it because of the writing style, but that ultimately they absolutely loved it. So this one I know has been pretty hyped. When did this one actually, like when was this actually released? Okay, so this one came out in 2017. So it's a few years old now, but I've still heard people talking about it and talking about how much they loved it. So also, because it's written like a biography, I've heard multiple people say that as they were reading this, they forgot that Evelyn Hugo is not actually a real person. Like, it reads like nonfiction, but it's not. So I think that that is interesting, and I'm curious to see if I also agree with that statement. And that is it for my very first TBR Jar, TBR video. Those are my 5 picks for the month of January using my new TBR jar, which has been really fun. I'm excited to continue with this. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take the prompts that I got this month and just put them back in the jar. So it could be that come next month or whatever month throughout the year, I could get the same prompt twice, which I think is fine. I think it just adds an extra challenge because I will have to try and fulfill a prompt with a different book that I haven't read. So here's my little stack of books. Obviously, in addition to these 3, I will also be reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I do not have, and A Court of Mist and Fury, which I do not have. And those are going to be my 5 books for the month of January. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know down in the comments what you plan on reading in the month of January. Also, let me know if you have any thoughts or ideas for my TBR jar or prompts that I could add to the jar. There are several obviously in there that we have not gotten to, but if you have any cool ideas that you're willing to share, I am always looking for more ideas of what I can include and add over the course of this year. Feel free to share your ideas down in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.